Okay, we're back with Verbal Judo Stories, and today I'm very lucky to have Mr. Will King, who's talking to us from WA, over in Perth, over in WA. Will King, for those that don't know, was the man who brought Verbal Judo to Australia from the States, and the man that taught me everything I know and passed on the standard to keep the Verbal Judo flag flying. So welcome, Will, and thanks for taking the time to join me today.
Thanks, Trev. No, my pleasure, mate.
So look, as we've discussed, Will, this is just an informal sort of chat between people, and I just want to try and get it out there to those people that may not have been exposed to Verbal Judo or have been exposed to it, and just give them some stories, some experiences, effectively just pick the brains of people that have been exposed to Verbal Judo, used Verbal Judo, taught Verbal Judo, and just go from there. So I guess the first question, if I could ask you, Will, would be, you just tell us a little bit about yourself, your professional background, personal background, if you're happy to discuss that, and how you became exposed to Verbal Judo.
Yeah, look, fine, sir. Yeah, I was in the WA police for just on 20 years, and back in 1992, I was the senior weapons instructor for the police, which we had to teach the police the use of force, which went from very minor stuff, the hands-on, resisting arrest and that sort of thing, through to the worst, or the lethal force, which is shooting people. And that was very intense training, very good. But while I was doing that, what we did not teach was anything verbal. And I often thought about that, and I thought, well, surely there's a course in Australia that does do something like that, an in-depth course teaching, especially police. So I contacted all the other police agencies in Australia at that point and just asked them what they taught in terms of communication for police officers. And it was very sad. The answers I got were all the same, and they were all zeroed. Basically, we picked things up as we went. I mean, they gave you a few principles and things, you shouldn't say, and be professional and those sorts of things, but there was nothing else. So I started doing some research, and I came across a book by Dr. George Thompson. I'd never heard of the Verbal Judo Institute, but the book was called Words for Street Survival. It was written by Dr. Thompson back in the 70s, and it was a brilliant book. He was a police officer, as you know, for 5 or 6 years, and a hostage negotiator after being a professor, English professor. The book got me hooked in, and I contacted the US and Dr. Thompson, and in 1993 I ended up going over there and did a course. And I've got to be honest, the course just blew me away. I'd never been to such a brilliant, in-depth course designed for frontline people communication. I left there and came back to WA. I started using Verbal Judo and teaching it to initially to recruits, new officers coming in, and I did that for approximately 4 years. And the thing is, I started also doing some courses. Other people, other agencies wanted to hear it, and I got so busy doing other agencies as well, I couldn't do 2 jobs. So I left the police force in 1997, and then the rest is history. I spent 21 years teaching police agencies, but it spread rapidly. The course, the same principles and tactics were taught, but they were changed slightly, of course, to suit anyone dealing with people, especially under intense or frontline situations. And that's nursing, that's teaching, any profession where you've got people at a counter or front onto people. So I did that up until, as you know, 2016, and then I handed it over to yourself, who I've just very wrapped the success you've had with it. Of course, it's brilliant material, but you've got to deliver it brilliantly. It's all about that, as you know. So it's a very crucial training, I would say. And I have never found another course to match it, and that's being straight down the line.
So, what grabbed you so powerfully when you sat in on Doc's course? What are some of the, I guess, the key aspects of Verbal Judo that grabbed you, and then I guess make it so unique and so effective?
It was put in such a honest and simple way, even though it was some complex tactics, but he delivered it in such a way you could use it so easily. And I just found it to be so honest. What was coming out of this professor's mouth was what was happening on the street, on the phone, with people in the conflict. And no one had ever taught us those things, you know, because as you know, you get a bit under pressure, you tend to say things that you shouldn't say, and then you regret it, etc. So that was the main thing, and the tactics were so simple. So, and I liked it. It was great. I couldn't wait. I got back to Perth. When I started work again, I went out on several occasions, of course, in a car and just stopped people for various offences and just practiced using it. And the level of conflict just was reduced massively, because conflict resolution courses, and they're good. Some of them are very good. But what I like about verbal judo is if you use it properly and use it well, you can stop the conflict before it starts. So you don't even get to the point where you have to find resolution. You've already killed it before it can get going. And that's what I loved about it. It's just by how skillful you can become. And yeah, it's just not torturous, you know. So I had a lot of success. It just worked very well. Most people, no complaints. And a lot of times you got thanked for just being, you know, thanks for your professionalism, etc., things like that.
Yep. It's interesting, and it is great to be able to teach this material, because you know that you can change people's lives for the positive. Would there be any over your lengthy time of teaching, Vijay? Is there anything that pops in your mind from a past student, something they've contacted you, they've just related a story, how it helped them, or anything like that?
Yeah, it was it's a long time ago now, but I remember getting an email from a gentleman. He sat him a course back in the late 90s, I think, or early 2000. And he emailed me. He was applying for a position. He was in the federal police in Australia. And he was applying for a senior position. And he emailed me, and just, it was very, only short, but he said, thanks to the skill and tactics of verbal judo, he said, I managed to attain this position. And he said, I managed to do it by reading the audience and the committee when he went through it. It was very good, but I had a smile on my face. But yeah, he was rapt. He said, I just want to pass on my thanks. The training gave me the ability to actually get what I wanted. So yeah, it's good.
Cool.
Yeah.
If you could break it down, if someone was to ask you, what would be the key, maybe the key 2 or 3 principles of verbal judo that really resonated with you, and that you think resonate with people that that you used to teach?
I think number 1 is it allows you to stay calm under pressure. Because if you're not trained, you can't think under pressure. People will either take off flight, maybe, or fight, or freeze up. There's kind of 3 things you do. But if you're well trained, like any real professional, and this is what I like the best of it, when you got under pressure, you didn't have to stand there and think, my God, what am I going to say? You knew where to go. And because you did that, the confidence you exuded and the amount of calmness in the situation, you could usually control the scene, control the situation, and you do it for the betterment of the other person as well, of course, you know.
Yeah.
So that was the best thing. It allows you to stay calm, because I know a lot of frontline people, they get very, very stressed and upset and tense, and you come home and you feel like that because you don't know, could have done it better, you didn't know what to say, and you mucked up, and all these things go through your head. And of course, we still have little issues where we're not perfect, but this allows you to stay very professional, especially in the heat of the moment. Yeah,
Yep.
Best thing ever. And the other big thing, of course, the main reason I was looking for communication or some sort of course was allows you to stay safer.
Yeah.
And this was a massive thing. You know, we taught officers how to shoot and all that, which they have to do on a safety point of view. But the philosophy of verbal judo, I found was just fantastic. It's all about safety and professionalism. and ethical behaviour, and they just resonated with us. I thought, wow, what a brilliant setup.
Yeah, it's interesting you say that. A lot of the feedback I get is that no one's really driven home how important the first two aspects of the force continuum are, because as you mentioned when you started, everyone's taught 3, 4, 5, and 6. Everyone's taught the physical stuff. But what we try to get through in the training is that if you know 1 and 2 really, really well and can use them effectively, they will prevent 3, 4, 5, and 6. It's not to say that the use of force is not appropriate. It is 100% appropriate in certain occasions. But words skillfully used are going to help you prevent the use of force. Because as you would know as a police officer, once you escalate to force, there's a there's the safety of yourself and the safety of the other person that is in potential jeopardy. So anytime we can use words to prevent any type of physical involvement, I think it's a great thing, that's what a lot of people tell me that verbal judo does.
And it is. It's the only course that actually teaches your presence and words in such a straightforward, skillful way. And you did right. And like even policing, a lot of people watch too much TV with the police shows and stuff, which are great for some of them. But 97-98% of police work, seriously, is all verbal interaction. That's what you do. You walk and talk, knock on doors, you talk. The 1 to 3% is, in most, as an average, is using other forms of force. But when you look at other agencies that are not policing but are still dealing with people and hospitals, well, you know that, teachers, the amount of hostility they have to deal with, their walk and talk business is kind of 99%, 99 point something for most agencies. There are some exemptions, of course, but generally speaking, and that's why I think it's so important. If you deal with people, even on the phone, people ring up and start to go crook and abuse you. It's so good to know what to say. And if you can turn someone around, there's tremendous satisfaction in that. You calm them down, and when you hang up, one, you're going to have a better customer if they contact you again. It's not going to be I don't think it'll be as bad. Oh, I know that for a fact. If you deal with the same person and you've treated them well, I'm not saying softly, I'm just saying professionally and well. Next time you deal with them, usually they're a lot easier to handle. And it's only due to your performance. It's due to how you did it. So that's where very important.
Well, I think that's one of the key things that you drove home to me, and what I drove home when I teach people is that you want to leave people better than when you found them at their worst.
Absolutely.
Right? That's the job. Leave them better than when you found them. Don't leave them with the challenge they have to meet with that monkey on their back that when they see you next time, they'll go, I remember you. You didn't speak to me well. And then it goes from there. So, and that's the whole win-win. And as we teach in verbal judo, that's the wusha. We're trying to turn people around using their own energy. That's awesome. If you, I'll probably end it on this one question. Why do you think that anyone, whether it be parents, in your personal life or your professional life, why should people consider sort of learning a little bit about verbal judo?
Look, Trevor, it is just crucial, and the main reason I think, anyone, but parents, we look at that for a second, you look at the verbal abuse at home and in households and domestic violence, which is probably the most common call out police get. If you can know how to handle your kids and other family members, but your children, when you bring them up, you're going to bring up people, they're little people. They're going to grow up and be much, how can I put it, safer and better. Their lives will be a lot better to live in the community and a lot less trouble for not only the parents who raised them, but schools and society. It goes on. It's something that is core. I think it should be taught right at the start. And most parents, we make mistakes we don't know. So that would be the biggest thing. You teach people how to treat people with respect.
Yeah. I love it. And I guess it goes back to, as George, used to say, we learn to communicate predominantly from our parents.
Oh yeah.
So those mistakes in communication, because no one knows how to do it. We all make mistakes, and we're afflicted by emotions and stuff like that. But then our children, they start to repeat those mistakes, and so some positive, I guess, role modeling from communication is what I like about verbal judo. I mean, myself as a parent, I've made every single mistake in the book.
Yep.
Right? I can still make those mistakes. I try and choose not to. And I like to think, living the verbal judo way, I'm role modeling what a mature adult is supposed to look like.
Yeah.
Most of the time, anyway.
And that is our role as a parent. You are the role model. You've got to do it. And I think it is because the other thing that a lot of feedback, if you let loose with the natural language and you have a dummy spit, especially at the kids, you can't take those words back.
Yep.
You just can't. And you can go 20 years or 30 years and kids, if you bring it up, they will still remember.
I remember it, yeah.
I remember when and that's pretty sad, and very sad. And I think if you can help people stop to do that, take a breath, and the tactics are there. That's what I loved about it, deflecting the verbal abuse when someone has a go at you. It's so powerful if you can do that. A lot of people say, oh, no, it's not. And you go, no, it is. It's so skillful if you can do that. And the result at the end is definitely the wuxia. You just go, yep.
Yep, I got him.
You can leave people speechless. Yeah.
Well, you can. It's a very powerful art.
Yeah.
I'll let you go after I can just pick your brain on one more thing. Could you just give us your insights into Dr. Thompson, just quickly? What sort of a man was he? Just your impressions. I mean, we lost a great man. I never had the chance to meet him in 2011. So, and all of the verbal judo instructors around the world are continually trying to continue his legacy. So, just first impressions from yourself about George.
Yeah, he was a brilliant man. When I say that, he was very complex person, like a lot of us are, but he was he was a walking contradiction in some ways. He was a brilliant person, but also he was very good at using natural language when he wanted to. He grew up and did everything wrong, as he said in all his books and everything else. That wasn't an exaggeration. He was a brilliant man, and I got to know him very well over the 17 odd years. I stayed with him over in the US when I went over there for training, and he could get upset at the drop of a hat, but I noticed just staying with him, he would say that and admit it, but then he would use the verbal judo, and it helped him because he had made a lot of errors. I watched him use the verbal judo in some instances in police work and not in police work, and he was an absolute master. And I just he was one of a kind, that bloke. And I was so lucky to meet him and be able to get to know him. A very hard man. He didn't mind conflict, but he understood that it is no good for people, and I think it's great insight from him to try and to develop what he did. Yeah, to try and stop people from the mistakes he made in other people. So he was a fantastic person. I'm just very fortunate to meet him, and for him to teach me all his stuff.
Beautiful. That's awesome. Look, Will, I appreciate your time. Thank you very much. And you stay safe over there in WA. Look after your family. And
absolutely.
I hope you get out on your Harley sometime soon and enjoy your retirement and the fruits of your labour.
You can count on it. Absolutely. And you take care too, Trev. Good luck with the teaching, mate. You're doing a fantastic job.
Good on you, mate. Thanks very much, Will. Take care.
All right. See you, Trev.